So I thought I'd record a video which maybe tackles one of the most common questions, subjects, which is, how do I stop suffering? How do I not suffer? How do I get out of suffering? Not have to suffer. So, just to clarify, in terms of suffering, we're talking about what we would refer to as psychological suffering, not how do I never experience anything that is uncomfortable or painful. So this won't stop you from ever feeling pain. But it might change your relationship with pain quite a bit. It won't stop you from feeling uncomfortable if you sit on an airplane for a 12-hour flight. But again, it could change your relationship to that experience. Well, quite drastically, in fact. So, how do I stop suffering? I think there are, at least in the way I'm going to talk about it right now, not that there's any universal reality to this framework, but I think I would say there are two key aspects to this. One is more from the relative position of I'm a person, I'm a specific entity in a universe, which is my argument with what is, or my resistance to what is, or opposition to what is, right? So that would be let's say the first category. And then the second category would be something along the lines of recognizing that what is what I am. That there isn't a you and a what is. And from that point of view, from that realization, from that recognition, it's impossible to suffer from that position. As what is not suffering. Which may sound weird because what is arising as seemingly separate, let's say humans, that are seemingly suffering. But this is the paradoxical nature of reality. And really it's not paradoxical in terms of what's true, it's paradoxical in terms of what our minds can conceive of. It's paradoxical to the thinking mind, to conceptual seeing, right? It's only paradoxical because the medium which we're using is limited. It's not actually inherently paradoxical. It's just paradoxical when we start thising and thating about it. You know, when I make these distinctions of a self and an other. Right? Without that, there can't be suffering. Because what is never in resistance to itself as a whole, as one, as that which is everything and beyond everything. So let's go back to the first aspect of suffering that I spoke about, which is being in resistance to what is. So in this, you are in a location, you are perceiving yourself as a separate human in a big world, in a maybe infinite universe, with all these other people, all these other creatures, all these other forces, weather, temperature, money, and then even your emotions and thoughts, you know, are other. I'm sadness is here. I'm sad. I'm happy. I want to be happy, I don't want to be sad. I want him to do this, I don't want him to do that. I want my money to increase, I don't want it to decrease. I want the temperature to be just right, 78 degrees, with some clouds and a soft breeze, a good amount of humidity. So it's wanting what is to appear in a particular way. And one of the most obvious things about what is that it never stays any particular way. Any particular way that it arises will instantly change. In the realm of time, in the realm of many things in space and time, there is nothing that is consistent outside of that which is beyond space and time. Awareness, now, isness, existence, which is inherent in space and time, which is actually why looking to that which is always already is the key. So from this point of view of opposition, resistance to what is, we might start thinking, okay, what I need to do is stop resisting what is. So when I notice myself resisting what is, I'm gonna not do that. The problem that would probably arise with that approach would be, then I am resisting that I'm resisting. I'm going into resistance about resisting. So I'm trying to resist my resistance. I'm opposing my opposition. So if I notice myself wanting the weather to be different, I say, no, don't do that. Stop wanting the weather to be different. But then I'm opposing the opposition. And this kind of leads to an infinite regress where we're continuously trying to control something. So that attempt to control, to oppose, to resist, to manage, to control is in and of itself the key to suffering. In Buddhism, it's called tanha, wanting, desiring. I don't know. I wasn't there when the word was around, so I can't say what it really meant, but I'm pretty sure it means this. It means wanting something else, or wanting to keep, reality is just perfect right now and I want it to stay that way. It's that which wants reality to appear in a certain way and wants to keep it that way. Which, of course, if you think about it, would be incredibly unfulfilling and boring if reality just, became statically exactly as you think you'd like it. So if we can't oppose opposition, if we can't resist resistance, if we can't desire for desire not to be there, because it is there, at least it seems to be there as long as it seems to be there, this is where we get into questioning, inquiry, where we actually ask ourselves, is it true? Is it real? Is it really my fundamental truth that I want things to be different? And to really, really let this sink into you as a wondering, as a contemplation. And you can go about it logically, but that's not going to really bring you all the way. You can start off logically for sure. Is it really true that let's say it's a little bit hot right now. Is it really true that I want the weather to be a little bit lower? The temperature to be a little lower. Let's say 3 degrees lower, I would prefer. Is that really true? Do I want to be the one who determines what the weather is like all the time? What a weird position that would put me in on this planet. People would constantly be asking me to change the weather for them. People would disagree. You know, when a good example is my wife's parents prefer the temperature of their living space to be cooler than my wife. So every time we go there, she's freezing. And, you know, who gets to choose? Right? We have that in our own little homes, and that can get complicated enough. Imagine trying to manage a whole world. But anyway, this is a little more on the silly level of conceptual contemplation. But to really find out, is it true that my truest nature, what is most inherently true about me, is that actually wanting things to be different than they are? Is my natural fundamentalness in opposition, in resistance? Or is resistance something that I'm noticing? Is resistance kind of an overlay? Is it something I've become very accustomed to? It's become very conditioned and ingrained. But is it really my true nature? And another way to approach this first opposition to what is, resistance to what is, wanting something else, arguing with what is just to ask, what would it be like? Just to consider, what would it be like if I wasn't at all in resistance to what is? What would that be like? What's it like to not oppose anything just right now? Even if opposition is here, to not oppose it. What's that like? What's that like? Or what, and you explore, what does that seem like? To let everything be as it is. Not to make myself, but to open to. Just right now, what if for 5 seconds you let everyone be exactly as they are, everything be exactly as it is? What would it be like to be me if I let everyone be exactly the way they are? Your mind may go, but then people would do horrible things. Yes, maybe. Who knows? Well, I wouldn't say yes, but who knows? But we're not trying to go there. We're trying to be like, what would it be like for you? What would it feel like? What would the sense of your existence be like if you just finally gave everyone permission to be just as they are, just right now? People get to be as wonderful or horrible or crazy or sane or confused or clear as they are. Just in this moment, people are allowed to be as they are. How would that feel? What would the sense of your existence be like if there was absolute allowance for everything to be as it is? And just to go down this rabbit hole a tiny bit, in a little bit more of a conceptual way, imagine there's someone who's doing something that you notice, as far as you can tell, is bringing about some sorrow. You see someone who's talking to a child in an overly harsh way, maybe kind of ridiculing the child to try to control them, as opposed to, in a way that you're like, oh no, that poor child. Now, if you go into resistance with that adult, and you say, like, what the hell is wrong with you? How can you talk to your child that way? And you, in essence, are going and saying, you're wrong, you're bad. How do you think that is going to affect that person? It's going to do probably one of two things. It's either going to get them to turn back at you and fight with you, or it's going to create shame, but then they're just going to not do it in front of other people as much, and they're going to feel inherently bad about themselves, right? So either way, you're kind of continuing this cycle of what the parent is doing to the child, you're in essence doing to them. Maybe you're not ridiculing, but you're saying, what the heck is wrong with you? It's kind of saying there's something wrong with you, just like a parent ridiculing a child, like, you know, whatever. You're so dumb that you didn't know that. And then imagine seeing the same thing from a position of absolute allowance of what is, but you still have the, oh no, like there's still a little bit of a heartbreak, like, oh no, look. And then the movement might look very different. It might be like, hey guys, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And you might openly try to meet what is. And the fact that you care may lead down some sort of path. And it could go so many ways, but there's such an opening. You know, trying to meet and understand. Another one that I kind of like is, you know, if you imagine, I mean, this kind of, it's probably still going on, but it's not as central in the news. But, you know, imagine there are people who are destroying the rainforest in the Amazon or something. They're cutting down tons of trees, setting things to fire. They're creating farmland, or they're trying to create resources. And they're doing that, and let's say even your job is to save the rainforest. That's what you're hired for. You're paid for it. That's your passion. If you go to people who are doing that and you go, you guys are monsters, you're terrible. If you go with opposition, how is that going to turn out? If you go with understanding and curiosity, hey guys, I noticed you got cutting down a lot of trees here. Do you mind if I ask you some questions? Just, you know, why are you doing it? What's the intention? How is it helping you? You may find out a lot. You may find out, well, there's someone who's paying me to do this, and this is the best job I could find. Or, you know, I need to have some land of my own, and I got right to this property, and I need to create food for my family or create some income. You'd start to understand, and then you'd have a way into start to problem solve. Oh, okay. So we've got people here who are trying to find a way to essentially survive, have a living, take care of themselves, take care of people they care about. And then you can start to try to figure out alternative pathways, which has nothing to do with calling them bad, going into resistance. And it doesn't mean that you don't see the possibility for change. It just means you're not in resistance, you're not fighting, you're not arguing. So what would it be like to live that way? Right? That's kind of the key to this first approach. And although I'm giving some examples, maybe they're good or not so good, the crux of it is to get the feel of it. What would it be like? Is it really my true nature to be in resistance? What would it be like to not be in resistance? Imagine yourself going through the past week without any resistance to anything that is. It doesn't mean that you don't move, act, care, respond. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It has to do with your meeting of reality as it is. How do you meet reality? What is your relationship to reality? Which is interesting because that's the only thing that actually matters. Especially from the perspective of I'm an individual. The only thing is, how am I relating to reality? And the ultimate dissolution of that is I am reality. There isn't two. And that's where we get to the second, how do I stop suffering? Which is really investigate, what am I? What is reality? Are they two? Are they one? Now this can't be really done as you can't just tell yourself this. You can, I mean, it may be of some use. I never really tried that. Just, walking around saying, I am reality, reality and I are one. Like that Star Wars movie, I'm one with the Force is one with me. I don't remember what he said, something like that. You could try that, but more to investigate the mystery. Is the awareness that is looking through my eyes anything other than that which everything is made of? Is the awareness that is looking through my eyes absent from anything that I can see? Is it absent from anything I can feel? How many existences are they? Is the me that I take myself to be separate from reality? Or can we at least say, no, it's a part. We could say it's a part of the reality. Okay, so it's not other than the reality. So there's one reality which seems to arise as a separate location, a separate point of view, a separate body. Although, again, you can't actually separate that body out of the one, can you? That's why they use the analogy or the metaphor of a wave of the ocean. The wave seems to have its own kind of shape, location, but it is the ocean. It is not other than the ocean. So this is kind of where the end of suffering really has its possibility, is when the realization of there is only this, and this is it, and everything is it, and it is not even an it. It just all kind of relaxes into the true view, which is absolutely not in resistance whatsoever. Doesn't mean that the appearance of resistance is never seen again. It doesn't mean that the appearance of a person or a tree is never seen again. It can arise in infinite ways, but you fundamentally are rooted in what you really are. So that's the end of suffering. How do I stop suffering? Realize that you are the one, and you will no longer argue with anything. And even if you are arguing, you won't experience it as arguing, as strange as that sounds. And that arguing, that conditioning that people would say it's like a wheel spinning, it doesn't just stop. It will slow down and slow down. And you may find that it actually stops. That conditioning of arguing from the location of your particular human that you seem to be located around, it will very much decrease in argument over time. And you may actually notice that it kind of dies off quite a bit, if not entirely. Entirely is a weird word because that just limits the way reality can express. But in a conventional kind of progressive path, located way of speaking about this, even that arguing will diminish. However, just very, very clearly, that is not the goal. The goal is not to get the human to stop arguing. The goal is to realize that you are not actually in an argument with what is. You are not anything other than what is. You are not other than the human, but you are not other than any of the other humans either. But your fundamental nature is not in resistance. It is this. And this is only a tiny, that's a weird way to say it, but it's only a tiny aspect of what you really are. This manifest world, this manifest reality is a tiny little kind of infinitely beautiful and amazing speck It doesn't mean that this doesn't deserve all of the love and care. It contains everything right here, walking down this road. But it's also, you know, that's why sometimes they talk of it as a dream. It's just a dream. Merrily, 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 row your boat. Okay, I might start to ramble here. So I hope that is a somewhat useful talking about how to stop suffering.